There's even a new sugar that's out that looks like it counters this effect. So there's ways to beat this without drugs, for sure.
And when you talk about this new sugar, is that allulose?
Yes, yes. And I do have disclosure. I have been a researcher all my career. I spent 40 years getting funding from the National Institute of Health. I've published hundreds and hundreds of papers. I'm a scientist, and I've tried to be as ethical as I can in all the conduct I do. But I have joined a company called RX Sugar as their science officer, part-time job. And these guys produce allulose. And allulose is this sugar that looks like fructose, but does not activate this switch. And the reason I joined the company was because I'm very curious about this sugar that seems to be beneficial. And so when I talk about it, recognize that I'm the science officer, but I'm going to tell you all the good and the bad about it if you ask me. I'm quite happy to share everything about allulose.
Well, you touched on the fact earlier that drugs like Ozempic are potentially, it sounds like there's at least a little bit of a good effect when it comes to the switch and what we've been talking about.
Yes.
The way I understand allulose, it acts like a GLP-1 agonist in a more subtle way than Ozempic. Is that correct?
Yes. So to get back, so there was this discovery years ago that there's a hormone produced in the body that no one really knew about, and it's called glucagon-like peptide 1, or GLP-1. And when they discovered this, they found that when people eat, that this hormone is released, and that it helps to provide some satiety, meaning that it makes you feel full, and it helps lower blood glucose in part by stimulating insulin and through other non-insulin dependent ways. And so when it was first discovered, it was thought, oh my gosh, these GLP-1 might be another way to help diabetes because it can lower blood glucose. So a number of companies developed drugs that stimulate GLP-1 as a way to help treat diabetes. And so these drugs came out, and one of them was called semaglutide. And this drug was found to help people with diabetes. And then Novo Nordisk, who owned that drug, had this kind of interesting finding that if they gave high doses of it, that it actually could cause such satiety that people actually reduced their food intake. And they started seeing really dramatic weight loss. And I remember when the guys from Novo Nordisk came to visit me and showed me this data, I go, my gosh, this is very impressive. I mean, people were losing, 40 pounds, so easily. And so this drug, that when they found this, then suddenly everyone starts to make GLP-1 agonists. These are drugs that stimulate GLP-1. They actually don't stimulate the endogenous production of it, or they don't stimulate the hormone itself. They kind of replicate. They're kind of a mimic of GLP-1. So they're like taking a large dose of GLP-1 and they've been manipulated in a way that the GLP-1 levels are high for 24 hours a day. And so when that happens, the stomach slows down, it can't empty as well. You get full very easily, and people lose weight dramatically. And so there are all these papers that came out showing 30-40% weight loss, and it's now become the drug of the century. And Lilly's and Novo Nordisk have become some of the biggest companies in the world because of the sales of these drugs. And everyone who's having trouble losing weight hears about this, and many people want to go on it. And it can be dramatic. It's being associated with less cardiovascular events, with improvement in kidney function, I mean, it really looks good, but there's a dark side. The dark side is that it's super expensive. Not everyone can get it. And it's associated with lots of side effects. This stomach bloating and burping and belching and diarrhea. Some people have even more severe side effects, but it's very common for 15 or 20% not to tolerate it from the get-go. And over a year, maybe 40, 50% may drop out because of the side effects. So it's not a panacea. It's not a cure. It's got a lot of issues with it. And there's another issue. And the biggest issue is that when you stop it, people gain weight. Everyone gains weight back. And they can gain quite a lot of their weight back within 6 months. So this is good for drug companies because that means you have to be on this drug forever. It's not good for world health to have such an expensive drug that very few people can afford. And when insurance companies pay, they'll get you back by increasing their insurance premiums. So it's not a great thing, but it is a great thing, but it's not totally great. What's really cool about allulose, which is why I love this sugar, is, most low-calorie sugars are neutral or negative. What I mean by that is, yes, they don't activate the switch. But there's a few that do. There's a few low-calorie sugars that are really dangerous, like sorbitol, which is put in syrups, tagatose. There's some sugars that you really don't want to ingest because they'll actually activate the switch in a delayed way. But most low-calorie sugars don't activate the switch, so they all have that advantage over sugar. But some of them are like aspartame can be associated with like memory loss, and saccharin can be associated with bladder tumors, and there's enough concerns that people try to say, hey, you should avoid low-calorie sugars and just tough it out. But people love sweets, and so there's this problem, and it's like wired. So what's neat about allulose is it's sweet, but it's not as sweet as sugar. And it looks like fructose, but it doesn't activate the switch. But what's cool about it is that it stimulates GLP-1, the actual hormone that in our body. So it does it like 5 to 10-fold better than most other, carbs. And so it's actually really raises the levels. And so people have noticed that it stimulates satiety, and there's a lot of clinics where they're using this to help people reduce weight regain following stopping Ozempic, for example. And I was just on another podcast with a doctor who's doing that regularly. While it can reduce weight regain, and it's been shown in clinical trials to cause weight loss, it's much milder than semaglutide. I doubt you're going to get huge weight loss with eating a chocolate allulose bar a day. But if you ate one with every meal, you might actually see some significant weight loss, and certainly it improves blood sugar. So it has that same GLP-1 effect where it really can reduce blood sugar. I have a CGM, which I'm not diabetic, but the people from Levels graciously gave it to me so I can monitor my glucose levels when I eat. And it is very, very, very noticeable that the allulose can block that postprandial rise in glucose. It's really fantastic. And we've linked that with things like Alzheimer's and other diseases. And so I think it's really good. In fact, we have, there's a guy who's got type 1 diabetes who is also a scientist, and he started taking this allulose and found that he could reduce his insulin requirements. So we've actually just submitted a case report on that, and I hope to do a clinical trial sometime. So there's some really good things with allulose, but because it's a GLP-1 stimulant, if you ate a lot of it, you might get a little bloating and belching, sort of like semaglutide. Occasionally people will get diarrhea. Some people just don't like it, maybe either for taste or they don't feel perfect with it. But most people like it and don't have side effects. So it's more than tolerate. Most people actually like it. But it's been available for a few years in the markets, and there's quite a few companies that make allulose. I recommend just checking it out. Don't have to buy the uric sugar product, but there are a lot of foods that have allulose added. I would just check it out, see how you react to it, and if you're insulin resistant or pre-diabetic, I think it might really be a benefit. If you want to lose weight, I think it will be an assistant to losing weight, but by itself, I doubt it will be like semaglutide. But we do have occasional reports of people getting significant weight reduction, but I wouldn't bet on it, solely as replacing semaglutide, because it's just it increases the GLP-1, but not at the high levels and 24-hour levels.
Do you have any idea what the half-life of allulose is compared to the 24-hour of something like Ozempic?
Yeah, it seems to be for about 2 hours after you eat it. So what's fantastic is if you eat it, for example, like if you ate it before a meal, right before, it might actually affect in that meal, make you feel full a little bit early. If you take it after a meal, you may have some benefits, but by the time you're eating the next meal, your GLP-1 is going to be back to normal. So if you're using it for weight loss, it makes sense to take it before the meal, and it may actually dampen how much you eat. If you're taking it for blood sugar and like the rise in glucose, which, I think is a very serious problem, you can actually take it even after a meal. It's so fast that it works very quickly. And it doesn't cause hypoglycemia. It just kind of prevents the rise in glucose.
So there's actually two different mechanisms then. It's helping with keep us full longer, and it's keeping blood sugar tame.
Yeah.
You mentioned your CGM. So if you have carbohydrates and then you have some of that mixed in that meal,
yes,
it's going to dampen the spike. So two different pluses for potentially for people.
Right. And in animals, there's data showing that it improves exercise tolerance. Like in animals that are running, well, if you take two groups of mice and you exercise train one group, they're going to outperform the other guys. There's the benefits of exercise training. So this group did this, and they also broke up each group by giving them allulose. And if you give allulose, you get an additional benefit in the exercise group where they can go even a little further. And it's probably because it stimulates glycogen in liver and muscle, especially in liver. And when you're running, you're burning the glucose. And if you have more glycogen storage, you can, even if it's in the liver, some of that gets to the muscle. And so it's sort of interesting. So in laboratory animals, it's also been shown to, for example, stimulate the burning of fat and reducing the fat in the liver. So there's all these other benefits, but those have not been really shown in humans yet. But we do know for a fact that it lowers blood glucose in humans. Multiple studies. It is very apparent if you do have insulin resistance and your hemoglobin A1C is high, it's something you might want to consider doing. It's not indicated, it's not FDA approved for this kind of thing because it's a food and it's generally regarded as safe. But it does have this benefit for sure. And if you have a CGM, you can test yourself. Give yourself a carb meal and then do the same exact meal with allulose, and you'll be surprised. It's very impressive.
I've been hearing a lot about its GLP-1 agonist effect. I didn't know it dampened blood sugar spikes as well.
I think between you and me, I think that's the total winner for the allulose. The glucose effects are incredible. We think that postprandial rises in, postprandial means after dinner, the rise in blood glucose after a meal. I think that is one of the most dangerous things because if it gets high, it can activate the production of fructose. It basically is pre-diabetes, and it can go to diabetes. We think that is actually a major risk factor for Alzheimer's. And I think that the dampening of the postprandial glucose is the most clear, absolute benefit of allulose that I see. The effects on weight are probably significant, and it stimulates GLP-1. I think yesterday I was impressed. Charles Cabo, who's a physician that runs a huge obesity program in Connecticut, he has hundreds and hundreds of patients. He is convinced that it's very beneficial. He has all these testimonials that he has. So I'm sure that there's benefit there too, and maybe it's even more than I know. But the glucose effect is extremely easy to show.
For somebody tuning in who's, say, mild to moderate insulin resistance, they're metabolically headed towards type 2 diabetes, and we wanted to makeshift them together a plan to give allulose a good go. We know it lasts about a couple hours in the body. How would you go about using that? I'm assuming you could mix it in water, but what dosage wise, how much do we need to have a significant effect? And when would you take it before you were eating?
10 grams, like a chocolate bar. So 10 grams with a meal. Might be a little more effective if you gave it before, but it's going to be effective after. You'll see a very significant effect. 10 grams. And 10 grams is extremely well tolerated, especially if it's given with food. So 10 grams with each meal. The danger when you're pre-diabetic is not so much between meals as it is with a meal. So what happens is that spike in blood glucose that goes up after you eat, that is sort of the pre-diabetes. And then over time, you're right, the fasting glucose creeps up. But the real danger is those big peaks, and that's driven by food intake. So I wouldn't take allulose between meals. I don't think you need to.
When I was saying between meals, I was meaning in preparation for eating. Time it properly.
Well, if you did it right before a meal or like in the beginning of a meal, it might have a little bit more potent effect than at the end. But we see it even at the end. So if you like that chocolate at the end of the meal, do it that way. It works. It works beautifully. And test yourself. But, again, I want to caution that, this is a food. It's not FDA approved to be a treatment. And so, but it is metabolically healthy, and it has these effects. And, there are nutrients, there's supplements like berberine, which a lot of people will say is good for insulin resistance. I've never seen anything as powerful as allulose.
I want to come back to our story of the switch.
Yes.
Fructose goes to the mitochondria, tampers with those, and negatively impacts them so they're producing less ATP. I want to try and tie this to the GLP-1 agonist.
Yes.
Whether it be Ozempic or allulose.
Yes.
Is there a fit between the two of those?
Yes, there is. So here's the scoop. If you read about GLP-1 agonists, you'll see that no one seems to really know how they work. They're working better than, it isn't just the blocking of the stomach from emptying. Initially they said, well, it's because they slowed the stomach from emptying your food. So it's basically just making you full. But now they can see all these additional benefits, like on cardiovascular disease and everything. And so people are saying, well, maybe it's working through the brain and it might be affecting brain effects. And one of the things that has also been identified is that there's a hormone called glucagon. Now, glucagon is kind of the opposite of insulin. And it tends, when you give glucagon, it makes glucose go up in the blood. And so glucagon is actually a bad guy, although glucagon-like peptide, GLP-1, is thought to be a good guy. So they both have glucagon in their names, so it's a very confusing thing. But glucagon itself is like the opposite of insulin. It makes blood glucose go up. And GLP-1 agents have been found to inhibit glucagon. And that may be how allulose might be working as well. And so it keeps the glucose from going up in the blood. But one of the things about GLP-1s is there was a beautiful study that shows that it suppresses the switch. And the switch is driven by a particular enzyme in fructose metabolism. And that is really inhibited big time, or the expression is reduced. So it really knocks it down by GLP-1. So I believe that there's an interaction between GLP-1 and the switch, but it dampens the switch. It doesn't turn it off. And so there is this connection. And I think that, the switch has been shown to stimulate glucagon, for example. The switch activates glucagon. It's being suppressed. So I think the GLP-1 agents are interfering with the switch, and they're getting this great benefit. But I think there'll be a day where we turn off the switch, and it will be a huge benefit, and hopefully without those side effects.
If you enjoyed that clip, you're going to want to head over here and catch a full episode. I'll see you over there.
Getting fat is a normal process for many animals, and they do it to protect themselves during times when food is not around. So what's really interesting is officially, people who are overweight are high energy